Hello everyone and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I am Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel. We continue with Purification Rabbi Eliezer. We are in chapter 41. This is 41c. This one is called Come Correct. Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim shebechu kol haomim ki gavar aleinu chasdo ve'emet Adonai le'olam hallelujah. This teaching and all the Torah that comes from it and all the learning and elevation that comes from it is for the safety and security of our soldiers, for the safe return of our hostages, and for the safety and security of all Israel, wherever they may be. It's a very exciting times, kids. Pay attention to what is going on. Don't see what they show you. See for real. Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha says, the feet of Moses stood on the mountain, and all his body was in the midst of the heaven, like a tent which is spread out, and the children of men stand inside it, but their feet stand on the earth, and all of them are inside the tent. So was it with Moses. His feet stood on the mountain, and all his body was in the heavens, beholding and seeing everything that is in the heavens. We understand from this that the mountain actually did lift up to the midst of the heavens, and Moses was along for the ride. Can you imagine the sight of that? If you're Israel there on the ground and you see this thing taking place, in addition to the wondrous signs and everything that we read, of course, about, Mount Sinai. And the Holy One, blessed be he, is speaking to him as a man speaks to his companion, as said in Exodus 33:11. Then the Lord would speak to Moses face to face, as a man would speak to his companion. And he would return to the camp, but his attendant Joshua, the son of Nun, a lad, would not depart from the tent. In other words, there was no separation over here, face to face. Try and understand what kind of mortal man can handle God speaking to him directly, not through an angel, like every other prophet, either through an angel or through a dream or a vision, directly. God, no separation. Only Moses could handle this. Anybody else would be done. We see what happens. We're going to see in next teaching what happens when God spoke directly to Israel, right? What happened to the world when God spoke? But to Moses, think about the vessel he had to be in order to be able to receive and contain that. God's voice shatters mountains, shakes the heavens, makes the earth tremble, and killed all that heard him speak for the first two commands. But not Moses. He was so refined. Like we said, it was all contained in his vessel. He could handle it. God said, go make holy Israel for me for 2 days' time, as said in Exodus 19:10. And the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and prepare them today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their garments. So last week we discussed how there was a separation between the men and the women before and during the receiving of the Torah. Now we're going to get into it. So our text continues. Also, the washing of the garments, it doesn't mean their clothes. It means actually mikveh, holy waters, right? Living waters, rather. So our text continues. From what did Israel need to purify in the wilderness? There was no uncircumcision in their hearts. There was no uncircumcision in their flesh either. They all had to circumcise on the Passover night. And that's why it says, by your bloods you shall live. Bedamaych chai. Not bedamecha, bedamaych, as in there's plural. So what does this mean? There was a circumcision, the actual circumcision. They were all circumcised. And then there was also the lamb, right? So one was to break idolatry, that was the lamb. And then the other one was to reestablish the covenant, that was the circumcision. So again, Purification Rabbi Eliezer is saying, what did Israel need to purify from in the wilderness right before the receiving of the Torah? No uncircumcision in their hearts. Okay, now before we go on, we should address this, because we know what's said in Jeremiah 9:25. Egypt, Judah, Edom, the children of Ammon, Moab, and all those cast off to the corners who dwell in the desert, for all the nations are uncircumcised, and all the house of Israel are of uncircumcised hearts. Okay, in other words, all the nations are arelim. It doesn't say uncircumcised, but there's no way to say arel. There's no translation for it in English. So arel, basically, ola is the foreskin. They are foreskinned. You understand? It sounds weird. That's why they go with, it's not that, but it's not that. So how would it be that here, before the giving of the Torah, the hearts of Israel were circumcised, but later they were not? So here's a question that we can ask. When Israel left Egypt from the Exodus until the time of Shavuot, they were elevated one level of purity every day, reaching the 50th gate of Binah, right? This is why we count the Omer. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, all the way until 49. That's meaning 7 times 7. 7 times 7, and then plus the 50th, that is Shavuot, that's when we receive the Torah, that goes from the 49th to the 50th, okay? So that's the 50th gate of Binah. This is the place where none of the chitzonim, the impure outside influences, can reach, only up to the 7 lower ones. From Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, the 7 lower Sfirot, that's where the chitzonim get up to, but they cannot get to the 3 higher ones, and that is where we got to. Even death itself, as we learned, was suspended. There was simply no impurity among them except through their own actions, meaning free will. So they were completely cleansed, completely. The moment the golden calf incident took place, everything returned. And that's why since that time, every single day until this very day, and until the end of the final redemption, which we are currently in, I hope you know, we have to constantly be holy because the impurity is there constantly. There's always a battle. There's always it's always there. The higher you go, the higher it goes. You understand? You go lower, it's going to overtake you. But if you stay at the same level, that's how you contain it. The way this will happen is written clearly in Ezekiel 36:35. And I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you will be clean. From all your impurities and from all your abominations, I will cleanse you. So this is in the end. But this already happened right before Mount Sinai, right? This is what Israel did in the wilderness when they were told to wash their garments, right? Not talking about their clothes, we're talking about their birthday suits. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will take away the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. One that can be circumcised, if you will. That's what an uncircumcised heart is. The foreskin is a klipa, it's a shell, it's a husk, literally, around, right? That latches on and covers the holiness, so nothing can penetrate. But when this is finally broken, we will receive all with no conflict. And I will put my spirit within you and bring it about that you will walk in my statutes and you will keep my ordinances and do them. In other words, to finally, fully be able to follow the laws of the Torah with full alignment and understanding, which we don't have now. In fact, that's what chukim, what is translated as statutes. We don't know the reasoning behind it. In most cases, we don't fully understand or know the reasoning behind anything that we do. We understand it benefits us. We understand because God said so. But the logic, it's way beyond us, right? Like the red heifer. That is something that Moses did not know. It's something that Solomon did not know. We know very simply, yes, it makes the pure impure and the impure pure. Great. Why, where, what, how? You understand? Nobody knows these things. This is one of the things that Mashiach is going to reveal when the final red heifer is going to be brought forth to God. So when this happens, so you know, free will all but leaves us in the sense that we know the truth and fully receive it. We fuse with it. So, of course, we are following God's statutes and ordinances. Do we understand? There was this thing that I said in one of our group classes. Some individuals had questions about that, okay? Where I said angels, they do have, well, especially the higher angels, they do have free will, right? But it's almost like they don't have free will. What do I mean by this? Meaning, if you are that close to God and you have a perfect knowledge of God, in your right mind, you would never go against God. It almost takes away free will. How do we know this? Because it says in the end that v'timale haaretz de'ah, and the earth will be covered by knowledge. Knowledge of what? Of the truth, knowledge of God. They are one and the same. And that is why then we won't accept converts during these times. Why? Because then everyone's going to know the truth. Of course you're going to want to be part of Israel. But if you weren't, that means that you are really not, you see? So there goes free will. You can still choose, but since you know the truth, going against it is not some, like everything gets taken away at that point because you know the truth. In other words, once you know the truth, you don't need faith anymore because you know. Faith is something that you can't actually, it's not tangible, right? It's not knowledge, it's faith. I'll see it when I believe it. If you'll see it, then you won't need to believe it. You get it? I hope you understand what I'm saying here right now. Anyway, let's go on. From what did Israel need to purify in the wilderness? There was no uncircumcision of their hearts at that point. Later on, yes, yeah? Manna would fall for them from the heaven, meaning their physical beings were being sustained by spiritual food. Manna comes from beneath the throne of God, and it is beams of light, and that feeds the angels. It sustains everything. Angels need food too. It's angel food, essentially. It manifested in looked like coriander seeds stuck together upon the ground. So we ate it, and then it just evaporated. So, in other words, they didn't go number 2 for 40 years in the wilderness. They drank water from the well. Still had to go number 1, right? But again, it's blessed holy water from Miriam's well. And the clouds of glory completely engulfed them, just like they did Adam in the Garden of Eden before the sin. But rather, and here's the reason, from unity with their wives. So what did they need to do as far as purity goes? Unity from their wives. What do we mean by this? Okay, before we continue in our text from Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, we're going to delve into some details from Avot de Rabbi Natan, an extrapolation of the ethics of the father, specifically regarding placing fences. Okay, we discussed Avot de Rabbi Natan, and we're going to delve deeper into what we touched upon from the teaching called fences. It was a couple months ago. Look into it. It's important. And this is just one of the many times that Moses either added or changed God's command. We see it in the 5 books. God said this, Moses did that. Oh no. All right. And in doing so, not only did God give him a high five, but it was for the benefit of Israel. This is going to cause Christians to lose their minds. And I love it. They love complaining about the rabbis and about the Talmud, but what about Moses doing it clearly in the 5 books of Moses, and God agreed? There goes that argument, right? It's going to be long, but it's going to be worth it. So let's get into it, okay? What is the fence that Moses made around his words? If you recall from Avot Rabbi Natan, and I think you can see it. Can you see it? Yeah, you can see it on Safaria. You see God made fences, the Torah made fences, Adam made fences, Moses made fences, and so on and so forth. How these are used. Okay. So it says in Exodus 19:10, the Eternal said to Moses, go to the people and keep them holy today and tomorrow, meaning 2 days. But Moses, the righteous, did not want to say this to them the way that the Holy One, blessed be he, said it to them. So instead, he said this to them. Exodus 19:15, prepare yourselves for 3 days. Do not go near a woman. Moses added an extra day for them on his own. How dare you? For this is what Moses reasoned to himself. That's right, to himself. A man will go be with his wife on the 1st day, and then his semen will come out of her on the 3rd day. And then they will be ritually impure. And so Israel will receive words of Torah from Mount Sinai while in a state of impurity. This cannot be. Instead, I will add a 3rd day for them, so that no man goes to be with his wife, and no semen is to come out of her on the 3rd day, and they will be ritually pure. so that they will receive Torah from Mount Sinai in a state of purity. Brilliant. Let's build on this since we are covering Moses and throwing off the plagiarizers who have no clue. This is one of the things that Moses decided on his own as a more strict ruling, and his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. How could that be? Because it is. If you don't understand it, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means you don't understand it. He broke the tablets, and he broke the tablets, and his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. How could this be? He stayed outside the tent of meeting, and his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. He stayed apart from his wife, and his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. How so? Moses is doing all these things on his own, plus giving decrees to the people. How could this be? And yet he was still Moses, and the Shekhinah never left him, and God kept on speaking to him. So clearly he didn't disobey God, you see. He said to himself, if Israel need only remain in a state of holiness for a short period of time, because it's only the other people like, yeah, don't marry if you don't have to. Really? Because we're talking Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. Be fruitful and multiply. For goodness sakes, it's the staple of the Jewish home. Yet, no. So just for this time when you were receiving the Torah. Well, Moses said to himself, if Israel need to remain in a state of holiness for a short period of time and need only be ready to receive the Ten Commandments from Mount Sinai, and yet the Holy One, blessed be He, said to me, personally, in Exodus 19:10, go to the people, Moses, you go to the people, keep them holy today and tomorrow. Then I, who am appointed to receive the divine countenance every day, at every and any moment, and do not know when he will speak with me, nor whether it will be during the day or at night, all the more so must I stay apart from my wife. You're not going to have visions and the Shekhinah coming upon you when you're with your wife. That's not how it works, right? No? Okay. Let's take a quick pause and understand that none of us are Moses, okay? We don't do what Moses did. We do what Moses said. And his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. This is how the Sefaria translated it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. Rabbi Yehuda ben Batera said, you guys remember who that is? Rabbi Yehuda ben Batera said he did not stay apart from his wife until he was told to, straight from the mouth of the Almighty, as it says in Numbers 12:8, mouth to mouth I speak to him. That is, mouth to mouth I told him to stay apart from his wife, and so he did. And we know that Moses doesn't do anything. God speaks through him. All the words that he spoke, nothing was extra. It came directly from God. Why? Because if the Shekhinah is always with you, that's just what happens. Another opinion also held that Moses did not stay apart from his wife until he was told to do so straight from the mouth of the Almighty, but derived it instead from these verses, Deuteronomy 5:27-28. Go and tell them to return to their tents. And then after that it says, but you stay here with me. You see how we read it? You see the kind of details that are in there, that what's there and what's not there we can understand from this. Tell them to return to their tents. In other words, kol echad lebeito, with his wife, but you stay here with me, meaning not you. So Moses returned to God and stayed apart from his wife, and his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. He stayed outside the tent of meeting. How so? He said to himself, if my brother Aaron, who is anointed with the anointing oil and wrapped in the priestly garments and is able to use all these things in a state of holiness, and yet the Holy One, blessed be He, said to me in Leviticus 16:2, tell your brother Aaron, he may not come anytime he wishes into the sanctuary, then I, who am never allowed in. All the more so should I stay outside the tent of meeting. This was his rationale. And it makes perfect sense. So he stayed outside the tent of meeting, and his decision was in accordance with the will of the omnipresent God. All this is perfect and complete logical sense. And yes, we'll get into whatever's scratching at your skull right now. Well, in a minute. There's a reason he is called Moshe Rabbeinu, as in our current rabbi. He broke the tablets. How so? They say that when Moses went up on high to receive the tablets, he found that they had already been written on and set aside during the 6 days of creation, right? They're made from the same sapphire stones beneath the throne of God. As it says in Exodus 32:16, and the tablets were the work of God, and the writings was God's writing engraved there upon the tablets. Do not read engraved, charut, but rather cherut, freedom. For anyone who labors in Torah makes himself a free man. Amen? Amen. Free from what? Free from the madness of this world. Again, I know people and have friends, and at least half the country are flipping out right now, and they have been for the last 3.5 years because they have no idea what's going on. They don't know where to turn to. I mean, they know where to turn to, but they don't, right? So people who have no connection with God, I feel very, very sorry for them. And you don't think I try? Of course I try. I'm not religious. Okay, how about a relationship with He who made you? People that have no God in their life, I only feel so. My heart breaks for them because I can't even begin to imagine what it is that they're going through in a time like this with no God. Oy vavoy. So again, what does the Torah save you from? What is it? Cherut, freedom from the madness of this world. At that moment, the angels who serve God pinned an accusation on Moses, saying, Master of the world, Ribono Olamim. It says in Psalms 8, 5-9, what is man that you should be mindful of him? The Son of Man that you should take note of him. You have made him a little less than God. It says than the malachim, than angels. And crown. Oh, that's why the terrible translation says, Asitoto pachot mi Elohim, less than Elohim. But the people that translate Sefaria, they're not Orthodox Jews. They're seculars. There's men, women. Most of them aren't even Jews. Okay, just you could look it over there. I'm not making any of this stuff up. So whenever this is also why Christians, they think that Elohim, that means God, but it doesn't mean Elohim when the Satan said Elohim. It means Elohim is another way to refer to angels. God said, you shall not have other Elohim. Not that Elohim, only this Elohim. Al Panai. Craziness. Anyway, you made him a little bit less than the angels and crowned him with glory and splendor. You have set him up on rule over your handiwork. The world is beneath your feet, sheep and oxen, all of them, and wild beasts as well, the birds of the heavens and the fish of the sea. In other words, why? Why this guy? Why man? Right? So they spoke behind Moses' back and they asked, why is this one, born of an earthly woman, worthy of ascending to the heights? As it says in Psalm 68:19, you went up to the heights, have taken captives, have taken gifts. Indeed, he has. Not only the eternal gift, which is the Torah, but each and every one of the angels, all the myriads and myriads of angels of the heavenlies, they all gave Moses a gift, a secret. They showed him a secret in the Torah, because what can angels give? Nothing. They can't give anything. They don't own anything. But they unlocked secrets in the Torah. So they taught Moses to say, see, this does this, this does that. And the last thing that he was taught was by the Satan himself, and that was the secret of the incense. And that's how he told Aaron to go out and stop all the death happening over there through the specific incense, what he learned over there. Okay, and then all the angels had to say, Amen, you bested us, the Torah is yours, go bring it to your people. Okay, so you went up to the heights, have taken captives, have taken gifts. He took them and went down and was overjoyed. But when he saw that they were disgracing themselves with the golden calf, he said to himself, how can I give them these tablets? He knew everything that was in them. Again, it wasn't only the 10 commandments on the tablets. It was eternity in those tablets. Everything, the first tablets especially, it was all the hiddenness of the Torah. The second tablets were the pshat, what we have today. The first ones, forget about it. Not relevant for this world yet. How can I give them these tablets? I will be binding them in serious commandments and causing them to deserve death from above. For it is written on these tablets, you shall have no other gods before me. I just said, right? Lo yeh lecha Elohim acharim al panai. Before me. Exodus 23, 20 verse 3. So he started to go back up. The 70 elders saw him and ran after him. He was holding on to the end of the tablets, and they grabbed on to the other end, it says. But Moses' strength was greater than all of theirs, as it says in Deuteronomy 34:12. And for all the awesome power that Moses displayed before Israel, that's how the Torah ends. It's the last verse in the Torah. He looked and he saw that the letters were flying off of them. And he said, how can I give these tablets to Israel? For there is nothing on them. Another midrash says that the letters are what kept them afloat. He wasn't actually carrying them. They were hovering. It was just kind of like helping them along. But the moment the letters started going, they became heavier and heavier. So instead, I will take hold of them and smash them. In other words, I'm making a choice to smash them. As it said in Deuteronomy 9:17, I grabbed the 2 tablets and I cast them out by my 2 hands and I broke them. Talk about a man taking responsibility. That's this guy. Rabbi Yosei Haglili says, I will give you a parable. To what can this be compared? It can be compared to a human king who said to his messenger, go out and betroth to me a beautiful, gracious maiden whose deeds are lovely. Hi, that's Israel. The messenger went and betrothed such a woman. But after he betrothed her, he went and found her cheating with someone else. The golden calf, right? He made an instant judgment within himself. And he said, if I give her the marriage contract now, in other words, before it's signed, she will immediately deserve death, right? So let her instead be released from my master forever. So too did Moses the righteous make a judgment with himself and say, how can I give these tablets to Israel and bind them in serious commandments and cause them to deserve death? For it is written upon them, Exodus 22:19, one who sacrifices to any gods other than the eternal alone will be put to death. Do you see what he did here? He had his own understanding and he said, this is what is best for Israel. What is best for Israel by default is always the will of God. Always the will of God. So again, if you stand against Israel, I'm not talking about the false Israeli government who is also standing against Israel, but against Israel, the people of Israel, the Jews, right? The ones who are keeping God's commands. If you stand against them, this is not according to the will of God. Your free will, sure, everything's been written down and the day of reckoning is close at hand. If anyone is going to complain that Moses went against the word or will of God, remember, you are alive today because Moses did that. If Israel is destroyed, so is the world. So instead, he said, I will take a hold of them and smash them and thereby return the people to good standing, lest Israel say, where are the first tablets that you brought down? These things are counterfeit. You understand? That's why he was up there for 40 days. He came down. He prayed for them for 40 days. He was separate for them for 40 days. And then he went up again for another 40 days. Rabbi Yehuda ben Batera says Moses did not break the tablets until he was told to, straight from the mouth of the Almighty, as it says in Numbers 12:8. Mouth to mouth I speak to him. That is, mouth to mouth I said to him, break the tablets. Moses did nothing without God's say-so. And there are others who say Moses did not break the tablets until he was told to straight from the mouth of the Almighty, as it says in Deuteronomy 9:16. I saw there that you had sinned against the eternal your God. It says only I saw there, because he because he saw there the writing flying off the tablets. Others say Moses did not break the tablets until he was told straight from the mouth of the Holy One, blessed be He, in Deuteronomy 10:5. The tablets were there as the Eternal had commanded me, meaning commanded me doing exactly what God said. It says only commanded me because first he was commanded to break them, and then he broke them. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said Moses did not break the tablets until he was told to do so straight from the mouth of the Almighty, as says in Deuteronomy 34:12, that Moses performed before all Israel. Just as later on he was commanded, then he did so. So too here he was commanded, and then he did. Everything that Moses was commanded to do, he did. Rabbi Akiva says Moses did not break the tablets until he was told so straight from the mouth of the Almighty, as it says in Deuteronomy 9:17. I took a hold of the two tablets. A person can take a hold only of that which he has been permitted by his Creator. God gives you something, allows you to take hold of, that's because God allowed you. In other words, now you do it. In other words, whatever you see fit, which is exactly what we see in the book of Deuteronomy. You shall place judges for yourselves. You choose whatever they say, you do. Deuteronomy. Rabbi Meir says, Moses did not break the tablets until he was told to straight from the mouth of the Almighty, as it says in Deuteronomy 10:2. That, asher, which you broke, asher shabalta, well done, yishar koach, that you broke them. Okay? Do you understand what's going on over here? Asher is blessed. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha. Blessed are those who dwell in your house. Asher means a blessing. Asher shibalta. Good for you that you broke. You did a good thing. Blessed are you that you broke them. Do you understand the valuable lesson that we have learned here? Moses' exclusive sphira attribute, in addition to his root of eternal and his acting sephira of majesty, is actually dat, knowledge. If you guys don't understand what I just said, send me an email. But knowledge without wisdom and understanding is meaningless. It is even dangerous. Knowledge is something anyone can attain. Let's go for an example with something that we can see today. Ivy League schools, Ivy League students, Harvard, Yale, Penn State, and the like. They got a lot of information, sure. That's knowledge. That comes from reading secular things. But look how dumb they actually are. I mean, we're talking about like Yale graduates, Harvard graduates. They're dumb. They're so dumb. The moment they open their stupid mouths, you realize the whole thing is a scam. Wait, so I got to pay what, $60K a year? 70, 100, depends on whatever. And even if a person can regurgitate everything from what they've learned, which this is really what they're doing, it doesn't mean that they can think for themselves, because they don't. They just regurgitate what their professors tell them. It's a curriculum. Say this, and yet they come out to the real world. No one gets a job. No one has jobs anymore. Who's got jobs? The people that actually know how to do stuff. When they speak, you realize that these institutions are telling them what to think, because it's not just to think, it's to say. Now let's take a note. So far, we'll go right now to the plagiarizing Edomites. Let's just call them what they are, seriously. When they tell us that the Mishnah, the Talmud, the oral law basically is idolatry, and that the sages added or subtracted from the Torah. Come on, how many times do we all hear this argument? As they regurgitate so well from Deuteronomy 4:2 that says, do not add to the word which I command you, nor diminish from it. Ironically, they don't keep to any of the words even from the written Torah, right? To observe the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. This is no different than an Ivy League student who knows a lot of stuff, yet cannot think for themselves, but rather is told what and how to think or to say. That is no different than these poor gays for Palestine fools. I mean, we're seeing that like, really? Free Palestine? Gays for... Dude, I'll buy you them, she, he, her, ze, them. I'll buy y'all's tickets. Yeah, have a big march in the streets of Gaza. See how long that's going to last, right? I've seen it before. It's a beautiful sight having conversations with individuals who just spew rhetoric, the same thing. Yeah, well, this and that. How do I know, Jeebus? Because the gospel tells me so. Okay, see, it's regurgitating. There's no proof, there's no nothing from anywhere else. But the moment they realize that their words are not their own, the moment they wait a minute, just stop for a moment. I repeat to them what they say. You hear how stupid that sounds. And they just have to look beyond the limitations that their cult has set up for them. In a lot of cases, they actually see the truth. The ones that are actually holding on, they're like, no, okay, you stay right there. No conversation with these people, right? There's no point in having a conversation. Once they realize, just take them out of where they're at for a moment, and they see, they're like, oh, that's when you see that switch and something goes off. Their minds are blown. They're like, yo, yeah, it's okay. So in many cases, I say poor fools, because really that's the case, being indoctrinated into all this stuff. It's a world system right now. It's all part of the thing that I don't want to get doxxed for, whatever they do here. As we have said many times, wisdom and understanding can never be attained on our own. That comes exclusively from God. Knowledge you can get, but wisdom and understanding, that does not come from you. Daniel 12:4, and you, Daniel, close up the words and seal these books until the time of the end. Many will run to and fro, and knowledge will increase. How will knowledge increase? Everybody's reading now. Oh, when is the time of the end? And when is Jeebus coming and all that stuff? So knowledge will increase. More people are reading up. But clearly there is no wisdom or understanding. Knowledge as in more people are going to read and trying to figure it out. But then Daniel verse 10 says, they will be clarified and whitened, and many will be purified. Who's supposed to be purified? We just read Israel are going to be purified. As it was, so it will be. And the wicked will pervert them. And all the wicked will not understand, meaning there's no understanding for the wicked. Who is the wicked? The ones who actually pervert the word of God. Guess who that is? But the wise will understand. Those who have wisdom will then receive understanding. It's very clear, even in the English, as you see that knowledge is a non-factor here. All those who have wisdom will receive understanding. Although it doesn't say chachamim, chokhmah, it says hamaskilim, the educated, independent thinkers. This is from the side of chokhmah, of wisdom. And so who are the wise? Psalms 111, verse 10. The beginning of wisdom, reshit chokhmah irat Adonai. Good understanding to all who perform them. His praise endures forever. Listen to the Hebrew now, right? We're talking about from Daniel, it's v'hamaskilim, which is tied to chokhmah, the educated ones. The Hebrew, it says, reshit chokhmah, wisdom, at first, the beginning of wisdom, irat Adonai, the reverence of God, sechel tov. Sechel comes from the word maskil. Laskil, sechel is a brain. Sechel tov, a good mind. Lechol osehem, for all those that do it. Do what? Revere God. How do you revere God? Follow his commands. And at first, there was wisdom, and Israel were first. Reshit chokhmah. Jeremiah 2:3. Israel is holy to the Lord, the first of his grain. Kodesh Yisrael Adonai, reshit tevuato. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim et haaretz. With the thought of Israel, God initially created the heavens and the earth. Only Israel will receive wisdom and understanding, though their knowledge be the same or even less at times than the nations, particularly the Edomites. Again, I'm going to stop saying Christians now, because we have to call things by their name, exposing it from the root. We are Israel. They are Amalek. They are Edomites. This is what we are doing. Don't It's again, what you think that the Roman Empire ever died? Brand change, Roman Catholic Church, for goodness sakes, which where you get all your Christianity from. Don't you see? We have to call these things by their root, because in the end, Edom's day is coming, right? Edomites. End of story. So when Moses or the sages who know the Torah from beginning to end, not just the ability to regurgitate what it said, the Edomites are great with that. They know the whole Bible by heart. As flawed as it is, they'll still know it by heart. Good for them. It says this, it says that. Go ahead, connect the dot for me. You can't. No wisdom, no understanding. So again, not just the ability to regurgitate what it said, but through submission and emptying themselves out, they receive the fullness of the Torah in all its heights and depths. They can change the branches down here so we can fulfill the commands, which does not change the root up there. Do you understand? All the physical mitzvot that we do down here, the Torah, God said to do this and do that, physical things, but the Torah is spiritual. These are the branches. Think of an upside down tree. These are the branches. That is the root. So when Moses changed the things, the root is unchanged. He just gave us something that is right for us that we can do here. And God agreed in everything. It was God's will, right? Obviously. So again, I hope you understand, because if you don't, then you won't understand the rest of the text. Now we could continue with Purification Rabbi Eliezer after we understand this. And Moses thought to himself, he said, should a man go be with his wife, they could be found to be prevented from receiving the Torah. We understand now why, right? Because the reasons of what the Rabbi Natan just gave. What did he do? He added 1 day more for them on his own account, so that if a man of Israel went to his wife, they would be found to be clean only for 2 complete days. Therefore, he added 1 day for them on his own account. Moses is the one who did this first after God said 2 days. And what happened? The Holy One, blessed be he, said to Moses, many nefashot, nefesh, lives, people of Israel would indeed come together that night. And so what you have done, God said to Moses, you have done well. And the Holy One, blessed be he, thanked him. Now the word in Hebrew is hodah, which does mean thanked, lehodot, right? But it also has the same word as admitted, confessed, vidui, hodaya, right? Gratitude, confession, it's the same thing. Although God said, it's a good move right there. In other words, good one, son. This is not to say that God didn't know. Here now I'm going to address what's been scratching at the backs of your minds. This is not to say that God didn't know or didn't think of all these things beforehand. We know he has. It's already been done. We're going through the notions and the motions. This is just one of the examples that God just used Moses as a co-creator. You think God didn't know what Moses was going to do? You think God left it open there by an oopsie? And then if Moses would have done exactly what God would have said, it would have ruined everything. No, God of course knew. He says, listen, it's like I don't know. Let's say you build some big construction project or something, and you got a little kid who wants to participate. Here, put the last button on there. Ah, yeah. See, look, we did the whole thing together. You and me, buddy. Right? It's the same kind of concept over here. Of course, God knew that Moses was going to do this. And he says, good job. You think Moses took credit? Like, yeah, that was a good call on my part. Of course not, because it was Moses. And then God said in Exodus 10:11. Oh, sorry, I missed the whole line. Right, so he was co-created with Moses. Because the idea, the wisdom, and the understanding to make this vital life-saving changes that Moses made, where did it come from if not directly from God to the humblest man to have ever lived? Basically what I said. Yes, okay. And then God said in Exodus 19:10-11, and the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and prepare them today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their garments, and they shall be prepared for the 3rd day. For the 3rd day, for on the 3rd day the Lord will descend before the eyes of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Now, and they shall be prepared. It doesn't say muchanim, which is, yes, that means prepared. What does it say in Hebrew? Vehayu nechonim layom hashlishi. And they were ready, prepared. It says rather, Vahayu nechonim, and they will come correct. God is telling Moses within the same word that Moses did the right thing with his decree, and that as a result, the people will come correct before him and will be able to receive the Torah in purity. And that's what all the laws and decrees are all about. It's in order to perform them to the best possible way, depending on where and when we are doing them. It also depends on the times. They did not have cars 1,000 years ago. Maybe 500 years ago they did. You understand what I'm saying? So, because it didn't have it then, so it didn't say cars in the Torah, that's not relevant? No, you dummy. Obviously, it doesn't work like that. Stop thinking like an Edomite. Ask a rabbi, knowing the halacha based on this and this and that. For instance, where does it say anything about a light switch, right? Why are we not allowed to turn on a light switch on Shabbat? It doesn't say thou shalt not turn on the light switch on the Sabbath. Also, it's not lighting a fire, is it? Right? We know we can't kindle a fire, we can't light a fire on Shabbat. So why are we not allowed to turn on the light switch? Because it's building a circuit. Building. You're not allowed to build on Shabbat. It's one of the Lamed Tet Avot Melacha. We learned all about this. There's reasoning behind this. And it's all taken from the 5 books of Moses. Nothing is created from a vacuum and someone's own personal opinion. This all is a matter of fact to get us to the purest possible point, according to the will of God. That is what the sages have done. That is why Judaism is still alive. Make sense? I think so. So again, this is what everything is all about. The traditions might vary from 3,000 years ago to today, as they would have if they were followed in Europe, in Africa, in the Middle East over the last 2,000 years. But the root always stays the same. And to understand that, well, you need understanding. And to even be aware of this, you need wisdom. And these were given to the ones who received the Torah, while everyone else asked, what's in it for me? So it's not about what you do, obviously. It's about how you do it. And that means we always make sure that we come correct before God in purity. And if we do, and when we do, God willing, we will see the Lord's descent before our eyes, as said, "V'techezena einenu b'shuvcha leTzion berachamim." May our eyes behold your return to Zion in mercy. Bimhera beyamenu. Amen. And that's today's class. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and have a Shabbat Shalom. See you next time. Bye-bye.